guess we'll start with you on this one.
Yes, we will. All right, the first headline here: federal government postpones vaccination resumption indefinitely. At least 3,707 cases in 7 days. Now, luckily, it's a bit of a disappointing headline. Nigeria is in the wake of what is described, or what has been described as the third wave of the COVID-19 pandemic, and we're looking forward to receiving the Moderna vaccines that had been paid for by the federal government. However, and I remember, recall last week we talked about the fact that the DG of NAFDAC had said we're going through testings of the vaccines, and they said there was going to be a massive rollout from tomorrow, Tuesday. This came in from the Director of Press Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Willie Bassi. SGF, of course, as we know, is also the chairman of the Steering Committee on COVID-19. Now, they've said that unfortunately they have to postpone this, and this article just details the numbers that we have, staggering numbers. Please take us through this article.
Okay, so disappointing, like you said, and of course the Mr. Bassi has also told us unforeseen circumstances. So we would then begin to guess what are these circumstances. Let me hazard a guess as to what one of the things that might be the reason for the postponement. So we have received the vaccines, and it's somewhere in storage, and then the states have not agreed the sharing formula. I want to assume that that's one. Then maybe a second guess that I will hazard. NAFDAC has not concluded its tests on the vaccine to give their green lights as to its administration on people. But those are just hazarding guesses why it has happened. Yes, we might say, okay, sometimes these two reasons might be uncontrollable.
Yeah.
Okay, so having said that, we still then need to go back to our people that this pandemic, as much as we have tried to downplay its effect, the virus is still out there.
That's right.
If you have missed out of the first phase, when we had the AstraZeneca vaccines here, this is another opportunity for all of us. We have 4 million doses. It will be distributed across the 36 states of Nigeria. I'm assuming, or I'm projecting, that Lagos and Abuja will get a lion's share of these Moderna vaccines, being the epicenter of the vaccine of infections in Nigeria. So I'm appealing to people: drop all your dogmas, all your beliefs that this doesn't exist. It does exist. Please go out there, go and get these vaccines once a new date is announced. We cannot do this without us participating in it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Let me take a statement from the DG of the NCDC, Dr. Chikwe Iekwazu, who says, and I quote, "With the third wave in the early phase, all hands must be on deck to nip it in the bud." I think it's important to mention to Nigerians that it's still the early phase of the third wave, and we can contain it to prevent it from spreading. Over the weekend, we saw a number of parties that happened, and the flagrant disregard of health and safety precautions, especially with regards to COVID-19. Masks weren't worn, the buildings were overcrowded, and it was worrying to see that we are in a position to contain the third wave, and it looks like people are not really adhering to lay down procedures. Buildings are not adhering to the 50% capacity. So it's important to know these things.
Quick one. Have you noticed the number of test centers that are opening up in Lagos these days? I went to somewhere in Ikoyi last week after I left here.
Yeah.
And on the same street, I noticed like two, which were not there before. Somewhere around Victoria Extension, around the White Hotel, around Victoria Extension, there, I don't want to mention the name of the hotel. There are three in the immediate vicinity of that place. I go there at least once a week.
It's a moneymaker.
So people should know that the tests don't come free.
Yes.
And they are expensive. Not many of us will be able to afford it the way it is going. Because if you go to the hospital today to say you have fever, the first thing, most likely, the hospital will tell you to go and do is to go and take a COVID test.
Yeah.
So that means you take a minimum of 2 tests. 1, to confirm whether it is COVID. Then 2, to confirm whether it has gone after you've been treated. So we need to be careful. We need to adhere to these conditions. Take all the protocol, take the code protocols as announced by the government as seriously and as important to keep ourselves out of trouble.
All right, thank you very much, Lakunle. Let's move on to our next story. Oji, Buhari OK's presidential wing for State House Clinic. So, from a disappointing headline to a hopeful headline, President Muhammad Buhari has approved a site for the construction of a VIP wing of the State House Clinic to be located within the precinct of Aso Villa. It's important to note that in this article it states that it will be open to all. So even though it's going to be situated in the within the precinct of Aso Villa, it's going to be open to all, and they're looking to complete the State of the House Clinic within 2 years, so before the end of his tenure. Oji, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this.
I agree. It's a hopeful one. I had personally been disappointed that this administration did not make the construction of at least one signature project in the health sector as one of its, because to be fair to them, one of the emphasis of this administration has been on infrastructure. I remember one day I stepped out of the international conference center in Abuja during one of our MBA conferences, and I said to myself, this was constructed by a military government. If you look at the major infrastructure in this country, you see the Third Mainland Bridge, again under a military administration, and I said to myself, particularly concerning the health then conditions of the president, it would be unfair of him to leave office without handing over to Nigerians at least one befitting hospital. And so I'm happy to hear this now, that they have now planned to do something like this, and they hope to get it ready by the end of the administration. So there are two things in the story. You've said it's so when I saw the presidential wing aspect of it, remember also that the wife of the president had previously complained about the state of the State House Clinic in Abuja. I'm surprised that they say it's available to serve all Nigerians, but another newspaper quoting, I believe it's the permanent secretary of State House, Umar Tijani, that while it is available to the public, they hope that it will particularly cater for the medical needs of the president, the vice president, their relatives, and other government officials.
So all but
yes,
available to all.
So I should just make that point clear. The other aspect of the news story that we should also pay attention to, because there are two sides of it. One is the State House, but the other thing the State House permanent secretary did was to also complain about the lack of, or not lack of, about inadequate funding of the State House Clinic. That whilst he also tried to distinguish between budgetary allocation and what's actually released, and he's mentioned that, for example, 2018 fiscal year, out of 8.6 billion budget for the State House, only 5 billion or thereabout was released, giving about 3.6 billion outstanding balance. 2019, 6.9 billion budgeted, only 2 billion, which is paltry sum, less than 40% was released. So he also wants Nigerians to understand that while we are criticizing the State House Clinic for not being up to standards, we should also blame those. But I'm not the one who will take the blame for it.
Does he think, though, I would like to ask him a question if we were seated here, that the money spent to fund the president's trip abroad, if they'd invested a bit of that, would that help with the funding challenges?
Of course, you and I know the answer is a big yes. It will definitely.
Maybe his answer would be different. As I said, maybe we should ask him.
Because you didn't. No, your question is not whether the money would be enough to fund.
I said, would he support?
Of course,
would he help?
even one naira would support.
Okay.
So I don't think anybody would rationally say no to that question.
I have so many things to say, but because of our time, I'll move on. All right, let's hopefully take this further during Lagos Talks 901 at 8:10. Let me come back to you, Lakunle, but before then, we have some comments on our WhatsApp platform.
Yeah, Samuel from Lekki says, please, this new hospital that they call VIP Clinic, it makes me wonder if Aso Rock Clinic was not for VIPs. And where in the world is a VIP location open to the public? Or are we all VIPs now?
We are all VIPs.
I guess some VIPs are bigger than the others. Fume from Muniru says, good morning. Thank you for that. Would actually add you. Thank you so much for joining us. And from Ayo, your namesake.
Saying good news about a hospital that will take 2 years. I think not. China did a COVID response hospital in what was like a month.
Yes.
You did hear what Oji said. They have a funding challenge, so they're looking. And in the article, there's a bit of an appeal there in terms of bringing monies together to build that hospital. If you have money, I'm sure before the end of the year you have a hospital in Aso Rock. So maybe we should look to crowdfunding or set up a GoFundMe.
Or look forward to an
event
for fundraising event.
I also want to say we should not compare apples and oranges. If what China did, we also built COVID centers.
Absolutely,
in I'll say record time. How good? Where you can compare them
Sorry,
to what
you said we
built
also centers.
No, not,
yes,
we built
isolation
we had isolation centers.
Set up tents.
We said we did some
whichever.
We may not compare to what China did. I'm
Because
saying
there's building and there's setting up.
I agree with you. But I'm saying if we're comparing COVID response
Yes.
measures, we also had. We didn't wait 2 years.
No, we
might
had
not
a
be up to
fantastic
standard,
response
we did have
COVID-wise.
in terms of, so maybe China would do their own presidential wing of their this in 2 years.
Yes.
So we don't know.
Thank you. It depends on the size and the edifice. All right, let's move on to the next story, Lakunle. Full list. Senate gives condition for creation of 20 new states. I think Punch was just trying to be creative in their headline, because really and truly it's the same headline with the other newspapers where it says that we did not say that we're creating 20 new states according to the Senate. So they said that according to the chairman, Senate Committee of Media and Public Affairs, Ajibola Bashir, he's in a statement titled Senate Committee did not propose the creation of 20 new states. He said they will only okay the creation of states if there is compliance with the provision of Section 8 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended. I'm smiling because obviously, of course, it has to be that way. Well, please, maybe I'm missing out something. Lakunle, please take us through the story. And what's that part of the Constitution provides?
As you're introducing the story, I was looking at your body language and I'm trying to second guess the thoughts behind what you were saying. Seriously, of all the issues, challenges, problems that we have in this country today, this should be the least of our worries. Now, don't forget, we created the first set of states in 1967. And between then and now, we've gone in 1967 from 12 states, 76, we went to 19, 87, we went to 21, 91, were 30, and 1996, we got to 30 states. And each time, one thing that was common to all of this creation, it was done by the military government. In my opinion, I think that this Senate is trying to be the first under a democracy in Nigeria to create states.
Why?
I think so. So the question why is then that the usual argument is that it will bring development closer to the people. But I think that argument is challenging in every way. Because what it means is as long as everybody goes to Abuja, 36 states are sharing 36 million today. If you create 20 new states, it is out of that 36 million that you're still going to cut out to give the other ones. It hasn't done anything. But what you have done is you have now created new 20 supermen in governors. Yeah. Another 20 deputy governors who will fight the 20 supermen. You've created additional 20 times 3, 60 senators, and so on and so on. So you see the number of people at the top that you have now created. We know that the local government system, if we allow it to function the way it is the closest to the people. For example, my councillor of the ward of my ward where I live now, is 3 houses away from me. I go to him when I feel like I should contribute to how my area is run. Yes, I know him. I have a relationship with him. Excellent. So, but imagine now that they create a state and they give me a new governor. The one that is here, I know where his house is. I can't even get there. I can't even drive past the front of his house.
I mean, so you sound like as if that's going to make it.
No, I'm saying
like make it easier.
I know, I'm not. I'm saying we know that where we should place our emphasis. If we were saying we're creating more local governments,
okay,
it makes sense. Why are we creating states?
Lakunle, let me don't your heart. You don't. They are not creating states.
I'm saying. Okay. They say they don't want to create. Yes. I'm saying that is where we are headed, because this statement suggests to me that that's where we're headed. It says we have asked people to do, what's it called?
Referendum.
Okay, so if my state, my part of my state now says we want a state and they come and do a referendum there, would we in that place, my state currently today, I don't want to mention, let me mention the name, I'm from Ogun State. We've known that since 1976 that Ogun State was created, a certain section of the state had always wanted their own state.
Ijebu State. And
yes, and it is there now. So if they do a referendum in Ijebu today, will they not pass that to thoughts?
I have a quick question, guys. So everybody in the studio, can we liken creation of states or states as we can compare, liken companies created, subsidiaries created under a company? Is it possible to make that analogy or that comparison?
I do not.
To subsidiaries.
I do not think so.
If we're to treat this country as a profitable entity, if
it was a profitable entity,
what is the justification of creating new subsidiaries or creating new states? Isn't it when you have the existing subsidiaries being profitable enough for you to actually branch out,
absolutely,
and create more?
Yes.
What is the profitability of Nigeria as a country or as an entity?
That's what I've just described.
Yeah.
That today everybody goes to Abuja to share 36 million,
So
1 million naira. So
enough.
If you create 20 new states, it is out of that 36. That means that 36 is now going to be divided by 56, not 36 anymore.
Please.
Well, they've just mentioned that for that to happen, for new states to happen, there has to be a referendum by at least 2/3 majority
Yes.
of the people of the area,
Yeah.
and approval by a 2/3 majority of members of each house of the National Assembly.
Yes.
So if you don't want it to happen,
Don't
lobby
even go.
No, speak to your people, educate the people, because everyone has a say in this.
Yes, that's what I say. That see, it should
But
be the
what
minimum
is-
of our
I-
worries.
yeah.
Yes,
Go on.
please.
The point it's also making is, why do we even start?
Why do we even start it?
I
I really
understand.
need it. So if you don't say go and do a referendum, nobody will do it, right? But my only issues with him at the beginning, the first thing he said was that of all the problems we are facing in this country, why that one? And he is presuming that the same problems that four of us face is what people in the National Assembly are facing. That's the presumption.
When somebody can present.
Okay, my apologies.
The questions the people asked were similar, like why present her in the first place? But
We think differently with them. Sit with them and you know that your problem is not their problem.
let's take a short break. We'll be back to talk some sense.
Zero worries, imagine no worries. Where all your dreams become
Pay
reality.
have zero worries when it's time to pay your bills, rent, school fees, and vacation. We'll be here making it easy for you.
Visit our website www.pagefinancials.com or call 017007243. Page Financials, taking you far.
Smooth 98.1. We're still here for Freshly Pressed 981 as part of Smooth Breakfast Show with Valentine Nohu.
And I am Myra Essay.
We also have Lakunle Yusuf and Oji Uka joining us to analyze the stories. Let's go to some comments before we continue. Gilbert Musa from Festac says, I am of the opinion that rather than build new clinics and hospitals, we should rehabilitate the former ones scattered around the country. We should focus on reviving our primary healthcare system.
Too important. Samuel from Lekki says Nigeria was more productive and profitable during the days of the regions. To me, we should go back there. That's during Bendel, and all those states. And I thought they said referendum is not in our constitution, or do they only apply it where it pleases them?
George says the agitation for the creation of new states speaks to a deep dissatisfaction with the way things are. We cannot brush that away. But yes, it is not workable as some of the existing states are not viable, so new ones won't be. But we need a solution. I think states need to be merged and more power given to the existing local government areas, like you suggested, Lakunle. Very quickly, let's talk about this story, Oji. I'd like to get your thoughts on this. Guardian reports federal government and the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, have announced a 250 billion naira intervention fund to expand gas utilization in the country. Please, pray tell us about this fund and what he hopes to achieve.
Are you setting me up? So I struggled with this story at first, but with the help of the others in the studio, I now understand. And again, I did a bit of further reading. The FGN and the central bank did not just announce, because this story does not help. They announced, CBN announced this intervention fund a year ago in August of last year. So what has just happened is that in recent times, the federal government has now more or less provided the criteria that must be fulfilled by those who can access those funds. So it is in that light that you understand the story better.
Okay.
So point they are making is that we have over 206 trillion standard cubic feet of gas reserves in Nigeria, and yet the utilization of the product in Nigeria is abysmal. Over 56% of the consumed resource are imported, but I'm not sure that is news for anybody. But beyond that, one of the reasons why we have problems with electricity generation in the country is one of the problems we're not able to access electricity that we need is because the electricity generating companies are almost always out of gas. So that wasn't the situation. Homes that can need the commodity, some can't afford it because of the price and all of that. So what the current intervention seeks to achieve is to domesticate development of the resource so that people in Nigeria, private companies will be more involved in it. So now there are two categories of persons that can access the funds. There are those who are manufacturers, processors, and wholesale distributors who are able to get up to 10 billion naira for each company. And then there are also small and medium enterprises, rural retail distributors who are able to get up to 50 million naira per because so the conditions, I think that's the other thing I should also mention. As I said, recently they've released about 7 conditions that must be fulfilled before you can access the fund. And I understand about 20-something companies have already applied for the fund.
Okay.
Some of the criteria include technical feasibility, an overall business plan, which obviously will make sense, social economic impact of the business plan, and how it will contribute to the state in which the applicant plans to operate, financial feasibility of the plan, economic and finance models, and environmental feasibility of the plan overall. From what someone in the CBN said, about 27 applications have already been received, and who are all asking for the 10 billion naira each. So, contrary to what I saw when I first read the story, because I was confused, I think it makes a lot more sense when you read it from that perspective.
Absolutely. And this is to encourage local players in the gas industry. Thank you.
Can I just say that CBN, like, give it up to them, do their due diligence and provide you with enough metrics to, ask yourself important questions if you're ready as an institution. But let's move on to this next story, Lakunle. Resident doctors, the PGF DG slams Labour health ministers. They want strikes in health sector criminalized. If you recall, they've been on strike demanding improved conditions as resident doctors, payments of salaries ranging between 2 to 19 months by some state governments that have been defaulting. I like that they mentioned the states, amongst other things, and also failure to domesticate the medical residency training. This is being considered most importantly among other factors. But what are your thoughts on this?
Okay, so we're back where we were. We had a conversation around this last week.
Yes,
I think, yeah. So the first thing to always say is, okay, this condemnation is coming from the Director General of the Progressive Governors Forum. That's the APC governors. So let me suggest then that it's actually speaking the minds of those governors, yeah, to say that they should criminalize strikes. In some instances, yes, but when you look at what the issue is here, these people have been at several negotiations with government over time, not this year, not last year, not 10 years ago, and government has consistently defaulted in actualizing the agreements that they signed with these people. As of today, some of these doctors are owed salaries ranging between 2 months and 18 months. You say you should criminalize a strike. One, why should a doctor go to work after, anybody at all, not even a doctor, go to work after being owed salaries for 3 consecutive months without a proper communication? Okay, so that is on the table. Before you criminalize the strike, pay them their salaries that you are owing them. Before you criminalize the strike, make going to work something that they will look forward to by providing the tools that they need to work. Before you criminalize strike, treat them like human beings. Okay, so when you have done that, you can now prescribe that, and you can even say you don't want a unionized medical doctors activity at all. So because everything they need to function is there. Now, The part of it that is very interesting to me is the medical residency training. Here we are, they mentioned the states that have not domesticated: Ondo, Ekiti, Imo, Abia. Coincidentally, 3 of the 4 states mentioned are APC states: Imo, Ekiti, and Ondo. So it gives you an idea of where we really are, that there's a problem with the way people in government react to the rest of us.
Can I take you up on what you just said? This statement, I think that's the most poignant statement in analyzing this story, in the sense that, why are we criminalizing strikes? Why is that your initial reaction, knowing full well that most of these people are calling for the criminalization of strikes, used these labor acts to wield their power or to get some of their interests served?
Let me share Ace from August comments
Message.
before we move on to the next story. Good morning, nice work here. I agree strikes in the health sector should be criminalized. I also add strikes in the education sector. But before then, we should also criminalize governments who owe salaries more than 2 weeks into a new month. After all, doctors and teachers also go to the markets. They need money to take care of their families as well.
Thank you so much. So what's good for the goose is not good for the gander in this case, eh?
Yes,
Well, let's move on to the very next story.
There's so much to say about it.
Audrey, Nigeria still imports dirty fuel 4 years after ban. If you recall, December 1st, 2016, in Abuja, Nigeria, Benin, Togo, Ghana, and Cote d'Ivoire all agreed to ban the importation of Europe's dirty fuels. The dirty fuels are regarded as fuels that have the higher sulfur content, as over the usual average. But what are your thoughts on this, Audrey?
Okay, because of time, let me go straight to the meat of the story. There is a body here, SDN, which is the Stakeholder Democracy Network.
Yeah.
According to them, the situation is so bad that the average diesel sampled are of even, this is the ones imported, are of even lower quality than that produced by artisanal refining camps in the creeks of the Niger Delta. How can it be? Like, how can we justify that? We have, some of those ones have been shut down, of course, by the government. We have said not to take advantage of them, so we criminalize it as we like to do over everything. Now we import, and that importation has a lot of effect. As you know, it has something to do with our balance of payments. It has something to do with the currency problems we have in the country, too much imports and less exports. Now, what are we? So, what is the point here is, why do you import when what you're importing and paying all the money for and suffering is of worse quantity or quality, than the one that you could easily have just done by roadside refineries?
Yes, modular refineries, yes.
In the creeks of the Niger Delta. I don't have more to say.
Sometime last year, that's what we're calling for, but all of a sudden, I think of throwing common sense out the window. It's time for us to go. If you look at a few messages for a wrap up.
Yes, Obi from Agos says strike is a protest. It can't be criminalized. All says they should just turn Nigeria to their personal fiefdom and enslave us. We also have from Daily in Ajah saying companies and subsidiaries will work for private sectors to provide services to people. Creation of new states in Nigerian government will broaden the political caucus. We need creation of local governments to reach the people, solve their problems, and meet their needs more.
Lakunle 70 is his handle on social media. Oji is at Oji Uka, or at the real Oji, pardon me, on Instagram. You can find them and follow the conversation with the hashtag FreshlyPressed981. We're going to switch lanes in 10 minutes to discuss and especially hear your thoughts as you call us on 0144899981 for Lagos Talks 981. Conversations around the headlines we've just shared.
There's 2 notes from Page
Thank you very
Financial.
much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good morning. Can we please switch off so that I can tell you what I was saying?
The headline.